We're just talking about John Tavares and his hunt for 500 goals. I know you were on that Maple Leafs team. Mats Sundin, epic night, dude. I was there over Kiprusoff's shoulder. What do you remember about that night?
It was actually against Calgary. I do
Yes.
remember that night. Yeah. So, yeah, the hat trick goal, overtime. Um, One you don't see usually go in on Kipper, but Mats had a heavy clapper, and it was just down the wing, and he loaded up, and it was a special night. I think anytime you're a part of something like that, whether it's a guy's 500th point or 500th goal, 1000th point, like you got to be pretty lucky to be playing with a generational talent like that. So it was exciting. It was a big win for us at the time. We had fun that night. It was a memorable one for sure.
Stage, we were just talking about like the levity of this, and there isn't 50 people in the history of the world who have accomplished that feat. So a big deal. And you've seen a guy do it and been right there. It was of my thought that they're not going to be feeding John extra. They're not going to try to be looking for him first. They're probably just going to play their game, and when it happens, it happens. Obviously, it will this season. But what do you remember about the build up toward Mats's feet there?
Yeah, it was talked about, but it wasn't like, yeah, it wasn't like the main focus. You know what's going to happen. I think I think we did the same thing here with Jerome in Calgary. You just kind of go about it. The media makes some noise about it. Obviously in Toronto, it's a little bit more than anywhere else. So, but it wasn't like the countdown was on, and Nats did it in pretty. It wasn't like he needed one goal. He did it all in one night. So, but once it happened, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. But within the dressing room, you kind of just go about your business, and you just wait for it to happen naturally, because it will happen.
Stage, I think it's interesting too when tough to compare any players from that era to this era, but John Tavares, just the way he handles himself. Do you see a lot of Mats Sundin and John Tavares, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit. I think definitely a lot of similarities. They both, score a ton of goals, centermen. They good face-off guys. So a lot of similarities for sure. I'd say different eras. So it's really hard to totally like put them side by side. Mats was such a horse, and I never played with Johnny, so it's hard for me to, I'm going to be biased towards Mats. He was such a horse. He played like right to the end against the other team's top line in Toronto. Anyways, he had the tough matchups every single night, no matter what. And he was just, the best leader you can ask for. So, Johnny's done everything like that as well. I think maybe later in his career, he's seeing, you got Auston Matthews there. So maybe, he gets some different matchups, but at the same time, he's really, I like that he's taken on, being a really good face-off guy, and he has been for a long time, but you can tell he embraces it. When you watch him take a face-off, it's just not out there just to snap it back. He's out there to win that draw, and that's so important on a team like Toronto, where he went to join a talented group and embrace that role, and he's still scoring 40 goals a year. So tip my cap to him. He's a Hall of Famer as well, and I think Toronto's been so lucky to have both those guys there for a long time, along with so many other players.
Yeah, like we were talking before you got on stage, like, we cover the team every day and we're right there. And it's still hard to know, like what makes Auston Matthews tick. And he doesn't show a lot of personality, and he's not Nathan McKinnon in his intensity. What's your thought of him from the outside?
I'd say, well, just a goal scorer. Like he's obviously, his game's adapted. He gets some talk about being really good defensively now, and definitely from his first few years when I was still playing. Yeah, there's always room to grow when you're a young kid, especially the defensive side of the game. So he's really taken pride in that, which has made him a one of the best players in the world. So, but just being able to score goals, it's the hardest thing to do, and he does that. But it's a transition period for him. Like, people forget, like, as much as Mitch Marner got some hate and with his playoff performance, he was still putting up points. And yes, he there's things that people don't like. Like that's a over 100-point guy that guys like Matthews, Tavares, Nylander could, rely on. Like Mitch had the puck on a stick a lot. So it's an adjustment when he's not there anymore. And I think, you can't just assume everybody's just gonna be back to how it was. Mitch was a distributor, and you maybe lost that distributor. And you still have guys that can distribute, but you lost a guy who played 20 minutes a night that distributed the puck, that had the puck on a stick a lot. So these guys are finding a way, or having to find a way to produce differently. Even on the power play, guys are in different spots, and you don't have Marner at the top there anymore, and you could tell it's an adjustment. So, but they got to take that on. They get paid a lot of money. They're the top players in the world, and they'll make it work. And I think that's part of the challenge that team has this year.
Leafs Flames, the Mats Stajan game, of course, and we've talked all week in the last couple weeks, Stage, about the start of the season. You know this market, you lived it. People going crazy over a 4-4-1 start, but obviously the Flames not to start that team wanted either 2-7-1 out of the gates here. Can you just speak to the players' mentality in the month of October? Because for us, and Rosie's lived it too, it's so hard to compartmentalize game by game because it's such a long season, right? Like, it's October. All you got to do is make sure you don't get yourself in too much trouble that you miss the playoffs, right?
Exactly. I think it's been tough here in Calgary. Like we've struggled, and it reminds me a lot. I think it was Rosie's first year when we lost the first 8 or 9 games of the season the one year. I think it was 2010 or 2009 with Ron Wilson there. It's not for the lack of trying. Guys are working, and just the puck's not going in the net. And last game we were able to get 5 goals. And get a win. So you relieve that pressure that the big cloud that's hanging over. So our team, the Flames, we're going to try and build off that. But it's tough, especially in a Canadian market. And our coach, Ryan Huska, had a good comment, and it's so true. You can't make the playoffs in the first 10 games, but you can definitely put yourself in a tough spot, and be out of it pretty quickly. So you got to stay in it. I think, if you're Toronto, you're 500, you're there. You're going to string some wins together at some point. But you gotta fight through. I think, there's ups and downs in a season, and it's always tougher when you start with a big down. And have a tough start. So these games are critical. I think, at the end of the year, every team looks at it, and we missed the playoffs last year by 1 point. You look at games at the start of the year that if you could just get that extra point, that they matter just as much. So that's the mentality that both teams have and should have, and every team in the league has. And you can never lose sight of a game in October or November here, and because the value of points are the same as start of April.
Yeah, and talking about where the Flames are at right now, obviously big convincing win against the Rangers last game, which is obviously a big positive. But when people are talking about tanking and McKenna and that type of thing, like, is that the last thing in the world that Leafs want in that locker room? Is any reason to do anything but lay it all on the table and try to get this thing back on track, obviously? And who do you think is leading that charge within the organization?
Yeah, I think that you're going to hear that talk regardless when you're not winning. But you know what it's like as players. You're in the NHL. You're trying to win every game. You're fighting for your job. You're fighting for your team. The brothers you're playing beside. So yeah, there's noise on the outside. There always is. But the guys in the dressing room are always, from the coaches on down, the recipe doesn't change. You're throwing it out there. You're putting a game plan together and trying to win that hockey game, and then you move on to the next one. So. We have a lot of good leaders. Blake Coleman's had a great start for us. Michael Backlund is, he's the captain. Nas, he's been, the last few games, he has that fire. He's approaching 1,000 games here too. So he's always has that fire. So we got a good group of leaders, Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau, and some of these guys, and they'll tell you, like, it hasn't been the easiest of starts for them. Rasmus Anderson's been playing great. They're trying to stay positive, but it's been tough. I think as a player, it's tough when you can't find any traction. So, I think you just got to rely on those older guys, and everybody else follows suit. Our goalies have given us, lots of good games and keeping us in it. It's just trying to find goals now, because with Dustin Wolf back there, you're usually in every game, and I think that's the way we got to look at it.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.